Artober Learning Labs!
On today's Artober Learning Labs, we are featuring the Tennessee State Museum. We'll read a story with Miss Morgan and learn to make a War of Roses craft.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Tennessee State Museum. My name is Morgan Byrne, and I'm the Family Programs Coordinator here at the museum. And I'm very excited to be reading to you today from our brand new suffrage exhibit. It is so cool in here. There's so much history. I'm really excited to tell you a little bit about it. So before we get to our story, you're probably wondering, what is suffrage? So let's take it back a little bit. We're going to talk today about the War of the Roses. Now, that wasn't a war where people throw roses at each other, because that'd be really funny, but that's not what happened. See, what happened was, in the spring of 1920, they had 35 of the 36 votes they needed to pass the 19th Amendment, which would give women the right to vote. But here's the thing, they just needed one state, and there were 7 that hadn't voted. So things kept kind of happening, and by August, it was down to one state, us, here in Tennessee. So everyone gathered in August of 1920 here in Nashville, just waiting to see what would happen. So here in Nashville, you had reporters and lawmakers and suffragists. They were the ones who wanted the right to vote. You also had anti-suffragists. They're the ones who didn't. And they all came here to the city, but they needed something to stand out from each other. So they decided they need a symbol. And a symbol is something that you can use to convey a message. So what they decided was roses. There are roses everywhere. We generally grow them. And so the suffragists chose the yellow rose. So yellow goes all the way back to Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. They chose yellow. The sunflower is one of the favorite flowers there. And they also chose white and purple. So a yellow rose was pretty common, so that's why they chose that one. Well, the anti-suffragists needed a flower too, so they decided to go with the red rose because their leader, Miss Josephine Pearson, would wear them in her hat. So it was actually really ingenious because what they would do is they would give a rose to a lawmaker who was for their side. So if you went to the state capitol to watch what was happening, you could easily look down from the galleries and see how a gentleman was voting based on the rose in his lapel. So here's the thing though, the morning of the big vote came around. The Senate had already voted yes, they just needed the House to vote. And when the suffragists looked down at the men, they noticed there were just a few more red roses than yellow roses. So it was a very tense moment because they thought for sure they would lose. And if they voted no, the suffrage amendment would just go away. It wouldn't be able to pass. And that 19th Amendment, it might take years to come back around. So they sat there and the big vote came around and they got around to a young man named Harry T. Byrne. He was the youngest lawmaker. And he was wearing a red rose, so they thought for sure he would say nay. But you know what? He got a letter from his mother right before the big vote. And in this letter, she said, "Son, be a good boy and help Miss Cat. Vote yes." So he said yes. And his vote would put it over and the amendment would pass. I can only imagine the cheering that happened in the House chamber. They say roses rained down from the gallery above, and the 19th Amendment passed. So it's really special for us here in Nashville because this was the place that it happened. Because of the 19th Amendment, women were able to vote. Now, that didn't mean all women. It did take some time for all women in this country to be included, but that first step was taken here in Nashville. So today, we're going to read a book called Around America to Win the Vote. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's a car behind me. How cool is that? It's probably one of my favorite artifacts here in the exhibit. So we're going to read a story about 2 women, their car, and their cat. I love cats, so I was very excited that we found this book. Around America to Win the Vote, 2 suffragists, a kitten, and 10,000 miles. Mara Rocklife and illustrated by Hadley Hooper. On April 6, 1916, a little yellow car set out from New York City. It carried tools, spare parts, a teeny tiny typewriter, an itsy bitsy sewing machine, one stout leather trunk bursting with useful things, 2 smiling women, and a wee black kitten with a yellow ribbon tied around its neck. The taller woman was Nell Richardson, the smaller was Alice Burke. Together, they planned to drive all the way around America. It was a great big country, but they had a great big cause. Votes for women, Alice told reporters. Votes for women, Nell agreed. They said the typewriter, the sewing machine were all part of their plan. If anyone said that women didn't have the brains to vote, then Nell would dash a poem off right then and there and prove they did. If anyone said they should cook and sew and leave the running of the nation to the men, then Nell would whip up an apron while Alice gave a speech to prove they could do both. And if the two of them could circle the United States 10,000 bumpy, muddy, unmapped miles, facing danger and adventure all alone with just each other and a kitten in their little yellow car, well, that would prove that women could do anything. So off they went. That very day, they had their first adventure when a horse pulling a wagon down a narrow road refused to let them pass. Votes for women, Alice told the horse. Nell tied a Votes for Women yellow daffodil behind his ear. Then the horse stepped aside and let the little yellow car go on its way. In Philadelphia, they stood up on their seats to speak to the great city crowd. Nell didn't need to write a poem on her typewriter or sew an apron on her sewing machine. Men and women cheered. But the very next morning, a blizzard. Nell and Alice dug into their trunk of useful things. They put on their raincoats and their rubber hats and drove through howling wind and swirling snow to Baltimore. When they arrived in time to be the guests of honor at a very fancy party, the trunk held a few useful things for parties too. The next day when they stopped for gas, a crowd of men clustered around the little yellow car. Alice hopped onto the seat to give her speech, but no one listened, so she told them about the car instead. Votes for women, the men said and waved as Nell and Alice drove away. After a quick visit to Washington, D.C., they came upon the bumpiest, muddiest road yet. The little yellow car went bump and squelch and finally got stuck. As the car sank, Nell and Alice jumped into the icy stream. They cranked and cranked and cranked the engine, but it wouldn't start. Votes for women, Nell reminded Alice cheeringly. Alice grumbled, and good roads. In the trunk, they found a lantern and a blanket and a box of candy from their friends. They huddled wet and shivering under the blanket and ate candy till the sun came up and 2 strong mules appeared to pull the car out of the mud. In Virginia, Nell and Alice passed a school and all the children ran to see the little yellow car. They hung all over it and wouldn't let the women or the kitten go till Alice promised to send them a picture postcard from someplace extremely far away. Then they drove into North Carolina, passing fields of singing birds and butterflies and goldenrods. And nearly fell into a hole where a bridge used to be. Next came deep puddles, sticky clay, and thick, wet sand. In South Carolina, a whole town turned out to treat them to an all-yellow lunch. Wow, look at all that yellow food. Those cakes look pretty good, guys. In Georgia, they joined a circus parade. Wow, I see some elephants, and that's the music car. There's some clowns. That's a pretty cool way to get into a city. In Alabama, the 2 travelers sipped tea and nibbled on stuffed dates. Everywhere they met crowds, Alice and Nell told them V for W. Outside Gulfport, Mississippi, the little yellow car finally found a mud puddle it couldn't cross. They sneaked the kitten onto a train. Shh. And smuggled it into a fine hotel in New Orleans. Then a little car arrived and they were on their way. They dodged bullets by the Rio Grande, drove on through the desert of New Mexico, got lost for days in Arizona, until finally they reached California, where they won a medal at the fair for driving a long way to get there, all the way across America. Wow, that's a long way, you guys. That's pretty impressive. But they were only halfway to the finish line. They still had lots of miles and lots of adventures on the road ahead. So they started here in New York and they've gone all the way towards the bottom. Now they have to go all the way across the top to get home to New York. On September 30th, 1916, a little yellow car drove into New York City. It carried mud and dust and signatures and souvenirs from all around America. 2 smiling and sunburned women and a fully grown cat. They arrived to a grand welcome. Wow, look at that. And a great big yellow cake. The cat ate 7 slices, as reported in the next morning's Tribune. After 10,000 bumpy, muddy, unmapped miles, Nell was ready for a rest. And Alice, she turned right around and crossed the country all over again. This time, she took the train. The end. I love this book because it's really a fun way to show how women worked really hard to get the vote. These 2 ladies went over 10,000 miles to spread the message of the suffrage movement. So here in Nashville, we also had people doing that here. Some of our famous Nashvillians would be Ann Dallas Dudley, Ida B. Wells, Juno Frankie Pierce, Catherine Kinney. Those women worked extremely hard in this city and across Tennessee to help get the vote. But they weren't the only ones. Do you remember how every time they stopped in the city, these ladies talked to people? So there are people across this country who are out there giving parades and writing letters so that women could have the right to vote. So that's really cool. It took a lot of people, a long time, and a lot of work to get the 19th Amendment passed. So we hope you guys enjoyed your story today, but we're not quite finished. So we're actually going to learn to make our own suffrage roses today. So if you see the beautiful roses behind me, we're going to make paper roses so you can celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. So I hope you guys have fun, and I'll see you in a minute. Hi guys, so this is our children's gallery here at the Tennessee State Museum. We were just upstairs in our suffrage exhibit. Wasn't it really cool? This is probably one of my favorite places. I hang out here a lot. So today what we're going to do in here is show you how to make your own paper rose. So our suffragists had the yellow roses, remember, and the anti-suffragists had red roses. So we're going to learn how to make yellow roses because it's the 100th anniversary of the passing of the 19th Amendment. But here's the fun thing. You'll be able to download a template that looks just like this. And you know what? You can make it any color you want. So if you want yellow roses, or maybe red's your favorite color, that's okay. You can do whatever color you want. After you print off your template, you're going to cut them out like this. I find it's easier to work when they're like this. Then you're going to follow along that line and make a spiral. So it's actually kind of cool. You could even just hang these up if you wanted to. So you'll need a spiral and a pipe cleaner. Any pipe cleaner will do. So what you're going to do first is we have to get this into our rose shape. We're going to start here at the very top and we're going to roll. So the thing is, you kind of want to do it a little tight because if you do it too loose, your rose won't keep its shape. So you don't have to do it super, super tight, but do keep it kind of like this. See how it's kind of tight like that? And then what we'll do is when we get to the very end, we're going to open up that rose. We're almost there. It's actually very relaxing. You guys need something to do that kind of relaxes you. I always like to do art. Although I tend to make a mess, so maybe it's not as, it was probably more stressful for my mom because she was the one cleaning it up, let's be honest. Ready? And there is our rose. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take our pipe cleaner and you're gonna open up your rose and kind of put your pipe cleaner down, and there's an X right here, and you're gonna poke the pipe cleaner through like this and bring your rose up. So about to right here. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna bend it. See how it kind of looks like a candy cane? You're gonna bend it down and push. And then you're gonna bring your rose up, and that is the inside of your rose right there. And there is your rose. So now you can make a bouquet, which you can put in a flower vase around your house to celebrate the passing of the 100th Amendment. Maybe you could give one to everybody in your house, or you could give them to your neighbors. Or a really fun thing to do is maybe you could stick it on your neighbor's mailbox, because we are going to be socially distanced and be safe, okay guys? So stick it on your neighbor's mailbox. But did you know you can do all kinds of things with these? You could make a Votes for Women banner and have your own Votes for Women parade in your yard or down your street. You could glue one to a hairpin. Now I use hot glue for this one, so definitely ask an adult or maybe a bigger sibling to help you, because it's very hot and I don't want you to burn your fingers. But you can put it in a hairpin and you can add it to your hair like this. Or you could put it onto a paper clip, again with hot glue, and this can go into a gentleman's lapel. So remember how we talked about the men wore either red roses or yellow roses in their lapels? So you can make your own for your own lapel. But the one thing I want you guys to do is have fun. That's what's great about art is, yes, we have instructions and there is a way to do it, but really you can do it your own way and have fun with it. That's the most important thing. Have fun with your art. So you know what, guys? I hope you have fun. But most importantly, I hope you come visit us here at the Tennessee State Museum. And we'll see you soon. Bye, guys.